Awesome. So I'll start. This was kind of a work in progress for me too, just getting myself on tape and learning how to do this stuff. So bear with me, guys. But today's lesson is if I were to start my acting career over today, here are 5 things I would do. I would begin today, and all of them are free, which is pretty sweet. So first thing that I would do if I were to start over is I would put myself on tape 100 times. I would get a sheet, I would mark it off, and every single time I did it, I would make it a game, have fun with it. I'd have zero judgment with what I'm doing, and the goal of putting yourself on tape is just getting used to the process, just getting used to what it feels like. I would want you to get away from doing it good or bad or trying to make anything judgment. You just want to use this opportunity as a time to play. The best thing you can do is just start putting yourself on tape, getting a feel for what it feels like, an understanding of where lighting is good in your house, an understanding of you just need your iPhone, a tripod, and a wall, a blank wall or as close to a blank wall as you can, and start recording, start putting material up. If you want, I'll put a link to sides in the thing. I have, it's probably like 100 sides you can use. Don't worry about picking sides that even fit who you are. Don't your age bracket right now. You just want to play with putting material up and seeing how it feels. With every tape, I want to make sure you watch yourself back and do your best to not judge yourself. This isn't about good or bad. This would be strictly about having fun with it. In fact, I would explore. I would try to do some bad. Try to do some where you're imitating another actor that you like, one of your favorite actors. Try to do some where it's too fast. Try to do some where you slow it down a lot. And in every tape, when you watch it back, notice some of the things that you do. We as artists, we as people, innately have an understanding of what truth is and what I call it strings, what that looks like, what it feels like when you see truth in another person. And so for these first 100 tapes, your first 100 tapes, now a lot of us have already put up tapes, so have done this thing. So this is more geared for somebody who's just picking up acting and just starting it now. But what you'll notice in these first 100 tapes is, for me, I would blink like insane. I would sit there and I would look at the reader and I would blink every time I didn't know my lines, every time I was nervous. It would be like quadruple the amount of blinking that normal humans do. And for me, it wasn't until I started really noticing this that I became aware of me doing it in the audition process. Another thing I tended to do a lot was when I was uncomfortable is I would shift my feet. That was one of my things that I did, and it took a lot for me to ground myself and use some tricks to make sure that I wasn't shifting my energy and squirming. Everybody has different things. I have a buddy who, when he would do stuff, he'd stick out his tongue without even knowing he was doing it. I have people who do things with their eyebrows, unnatural things with your eyebrows. Just be aware of it, look at it, see it. And that's the only way you're going to start getting familiar of like, why am I doing so much? Why am I doing that? And I truly think that we are so smart that we have the ability to use our ears, use our eyes, and see what's going on, and we'll self-correct a lot of those things that need to happen. I would suggest these first 100 tapes, do not do it. Do not use acting advice from a class. Just feel it out. Don't cling to anything either. You're not using this to try and figure out how to act good. You're just using this as play, as fun, to experiment and see what are some of the things you can do. So the second thing that I would do, and this is the thing that changed, one of the major things that changed the course of my career, was find a film school in your area. Even smaller places, there's film schools that are local. They may not be the quality that you want, but that right now that doesn't matter. Find a film school and you will learn so much. The first thing you're going to get is you're going to start meeting connections, because one of my mentors, and it was probably the best piece of advice I'd got, was to get in at the film schools. I'm in LA, so I'm lucky enough to be surrounded by, AFI, USC, Chapman, UCLA. tons of schools with upper division classes that are making short films every weekend. At AFI, it's called cycle films, or they were called cycle films. I don't know if they do that anymore, but my goal, once I got that advice, was to get in at AFI. And just doing that was difficult in itself. But I ended up going to the campus multiple times. I ended up getting to know the dean. I ended up getting to know the admissions lady. I ended up volunteering. I ended up working in classes. And before I knew it, I was working every weekend on a different cycle film that was making me connections. And I think I've had 3 students at the time who are now working on features or working in shows, who have called me in for jobs, and I booked one job from it too. So you just never know the relationships you build. You end up getting free tape. One of the most valuable lessons I think you can learn when you work on student films is how to work in difficult and uncomfortable situations. Sometimes the quality is not going to be good. Sometimes the directors you're working with are going to have no idea what they're doing. But the funny thing is, that doesn't change when you start getting paid. That doesn't change when you go to a professional set. You have this idea, or I had this idea that once I was booking real jobs, paying jobs, real shows, that the process would be so professional and everything would be figured out. But that wasn't the case at all. It was actually the exact same as the student film circle that I was in. Sometimes projects felt great and smooth and everything was going great. And then sometimes projects, the biggest projects I've been on, everything felt like it was going to shit. That people are storming off set. I don't know what's going on. They're rearranging everything. People are yelling at each other. And then I'm supposed to go and do what I do when I say action. So I think one of the best things you can do is learn that from excuse me, from being on set. Sorry, I got a hair in my throat. I have a funny example too. I had one student film that I booked. The writing was so awful. But it was a cool kind of concept, but the writing was so bad, and I wanted tape for it. But I have a good ability to be like, all right, how am I gonna make the most of it? And in order to do this scene and get through this scene, I never told the director this, I never told anybody who was working on this. To make it real, I had to set the scenario as if I think I might be in a dream. So I did the scene the whole time, kind of with this thought of like, am I dreaming? What the hell is going on here? And it ended up shifting and changing the entire scene into something that was really, really cool. The director shifted the whole story into doing something, and that was all just because I'd gotten words that I didn't make sense at all to me, and I had to shift it to make it make sense. It was an incredible lesson that I learned, and so it was fantastic. So I think if you can find a film school, even if it's a local program, start doing it as soon as you can. You're going to learn. There's lessons you learn that you can't get from any class. When you go to a set and a director calls action and cut, you realize very quickly that you are the only person who can get yourself to that place at that time. Everything else kind of falls to the wayside, and there's a quote by one of my favorite books, which is, "We don't rise to the level of our goals; we fall to the level of our systems." And it's from Habits, Atomic Habits, James Clear. And it's true. The second you get on set and you have all this pressure and all this stuff going on, you are the one who has to decide, who has to figure it out. And as soon as they call moving on, that's it. That's all you get. It's done. There's no more reworking it. There's no more doing it over. And very quickly you realize what you need to do to get yourself to a place of success. So you just don't get those lessons until you start working on set. So the third thing that I think that is an incredible skill that I would do if I were to start over is I would become a reader for any actor that I knew who was auditioning. Another really valuable thing that I did, this is about 10 years ago, was I opened up my own self-taping studio. Not studio, it was a room, and I would just self-tape. This is before I'd booked anything. This is when I was still in classes, but I saw kind of where it was going, and I decided to do a self-tape office. And seeing actors and the way that they approached putting themselves on tape and how different everybody was and how much everybody messed up, even people that I looked at as like, oh my God, they're so amazing. The process was messy. The process of getting there was not clean like I'd envisioned it. And it really helped, A, to see how professionals worked, and B, to show that it's okay to mess up. It's okay to kind of fail because everybody's doing it. It's almost a part of art. There's a whole nother lesson that I was going to go into. I'll say it a little bit now. One of the biggest things that I learned from being on set and working with some of these bigger actors is seeing them mess up and how they handled when they messed up. It's an era of professionalism that it's almost you don't even look at it as them messing up. You just look at it as a part of their process, because that's what it is. It's, art is messy, and they've accepted that. There is no self-consciousness with somebody who messes up their lines. Now look, when you're on stage, it's different, but with somebody who messes up their lines, it is just been a part of it. Just do this thing of like, oh, let's take that back. Or they'll even know the way it works, and they know they can go back one line and just continue without even a flinch. So those are only things you kind of learn from seeing other actors read. So if you have somebody in your circle, or somebody at a school you're going to, or you meet somebody working, offer to be their reader, because especially if you're starting out, you will learn so much from watching what they do, that it is absolutely imperative. Number 4, the fourth thing I would do if I were starting over would be I would find a mentor. I waited far too long to even think about doing this. You don't ever have to tell your mentor they're a mentor. You don't ever have to go to somebody and say, will you be my mentor? What it looks like is asking somebody that's maybe a level or two higher than you, where you want to be in a year, 2 years, 3 years, to coffee, and saying, I really respect and admire what you've done with your career so far. Can you tell me your story? Can you tell me what you did? Don't even make it about you. Just make it about listening to their story. And what you'll find is most artists, most actors, love to hear that. They want to see somebody who's hungry to learn and to get better. And by asking that question of somebody who's done something, it's a show of respect. And you'll find far more than not, the person would be more than willing to sit down with you and go above and beyond in helping you get to the next steps. They become a fan of yours. Perfect example was somebody for me who I'd always admired. He was a regular on shows. He was always a nice guy, but I just didn't think I could ask somebody like that to coffee, but I did. I ended up, I'd read the book. I can't remember the name of it now, but there's a book about asking people to go to coffee, and I reached out to him and did it. And sure enough, he accepted. We sat down, and that was probably one of 5 meetings I had with him over the course of the next 2 years. He invited me to his wedding. He checked in with me about stuff, and now I consider him somebody who's kind of on my team, somebody I'll check in with about things. And that never would have happened if I just didn't reach out and do that. So you don't have to do that immediately. And over the course of the next month, if you want, allow me to be your mentor, right? Ask questions of me. But as you start going along in your career, just start looking out for those people in your classes. Start looking out for people who are just a couple levels ahead of you. And don't be afraid to ask them for coffee. Don't be afraid to ask them to help you in this. It's unbelievable what happens when you start doing things like that. So that would be the number 4 thing I do. And the number 5 thing that I would say is absolutely crucial, and you can start this at any point in your journey, is start an actors accountability group with your friends. This is where this entire process for me of the working actor came. Start a group with people you know, or even if you don't know, people just in your class. You guys, the thing that I've learned is that when you first get into acting, you focus almost entirely on talent and skill, as you should spend a lot of your time doing that because it's the most important, most vital thing. But so little time is spent on kind of your materials, your package, the way you present yourself, right? And many times actors don't think about that until they get a publicist, and you don't get a publicist until you're a regular on a show. So it's up to us to be in charge of that from the very beginning. And the sooner you start thinking in terms of kind of your essence, who you are, what you're selling, the product you're selling, the image that people see of you, what are the stories that you tell. As soon as you start doing that more, you're going to find that things become much easier for you. Reps start to understand what they're selling. Casting starts to see you in a certain way. They start to know the kind of actor you are and what roles you're good at, and it just helps with everything. So, and one of the biggest things that I've found I think I've started maybe 4 or 5 different accountability groups in the last 6-7 years. One of the biggest things that I found is the relationships you form with actors. You end up shooting content together. You end up writing scripts together. You end up doing things you would have never even thought possible because you opened up your network to other actors that were moving. I would also say when you do start an accountability group, don't try and just do it with people who are equal to you. Try and find people who have done more than you, and also try and find people who are just getting into it. One of the best things that I've found in some of these groups, teams that I've started, is finding people who are new to the game. Because as you start to go on in this career, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, it becomes a grind. It becomes very hard. And that the life that a new actor brings in, the enthusiasm that new actors bring in, it's contagious. And what you'll find is everyone in the class will want to help the new actor. And in turn, that new actor is helping everyone else because they're starting to feel a little bit inspired again and trying different things and looking at things that they maybe never put that much work into. So I think it's absolutely crucial and pivotal. And then there's an extra thing that I added on here that I think is really, really important for anybody who's going down this path of wanting to become an actor. And it's working on your mindset. And it's not an easy thing to do. If I were to talk to myself 10 years ago, I would be like, what the fuck are you talking about? But your mindset fills everything else you do. I'll give you an example. In one of my classes, the Game Changer classes, I do a check-in every week with my students. And the first thing I do is I say, scale from 1 to 10. The first question I ask is how's your mindset? And that check-in usually is followed by how's your skill set? And then how's your business? How's the business doing? That's what I call it. Mindset, skill set, business. I call it the 3 pillars. And what ends up happening is people end up who come in with a low mindset end up having low skill sets in business just because it clouds everything they do. And vice versa. People who come in with a high mindset could have just absolutely fucked themselves over in an audition or did something terrible or been dropped by their agents, but they're not allowing that to cloud everything they're doing. They're actually seeing like, you know what, I think this is going to be good. I wanted to move on from my agent for a while now, and this is going to provide that opportunity. Now, working on your mindset isn't an easy thing. It's basically learning how to believe in yourself, believe in what you're doing. For me, that journey has been therapy, books, peer groups, seeing how other people do it. But some people just have this ability to believe in themselves and what they are. I was not that person. I saw the world as very judgmental because I myself was very judgmental, unfortunately. It's usually how it works. It's like a double-edged sword or gun. But it took a lot of work on myself to start seeing and believing in myself. And what you find is the more you do that, the more you're kind to yourself, the more you start to build that mindset and that trust with yourself, you start to see it in other people. And it shifts the way you see the industry. It shifts the way you see opportunity. And it shifts the way you do everything. And some of the lessons that I'll do here, some of my golden rules that you'll get in some of the future lessons, which hopefully will be better than this one, will be on, I call them the golden rules. I have 5 golden rules that I set up. And it just ends up your mindset and the way you view things and the way you kind of cloud something is, I think it's Proust who said you make a heaven of hell or a hell of heaven. It's kind of up to you, and that begins with your mindset. So that said, that was a little bit of a sloppy lesson, but hopefully next time it goes a little bit better. And if you guys want to ask any questions or anything, feel free. I will open it up to all of you.